Hello, this is the podcast from the international research platform SIMM, with reports and interviews from across the world on the role music can play in social and community programs. I am Lucas Perron. During this fifth episode of the SIMM-podcast, you will hear me interview Graça Mota from Portugal, Khamis Abu Shaban from Gaza, Kathy Milliken from Australia, and Bart Maris from Belgium. I discuss with them about what motivates musicians to engage themselves in social and community music projects. Because they had so much to share with us, this episode is longer than the previous ones. Graça Mota is a pianist and educator of music teachers. She lives and works in Porto. She also has a long career as a senior researcher of the CIPEM, the Research Center in Psychology of Music and Music Education of the Institute of Ethnomusicology at the Porto Polytechnic. Graça Mota is also co-founder and member of the board of the research platform SIMM. And on the 23rd of February, Graça Mota is during the Brussels Symposium chairing a session on what makes musicians want to engage in social and community music projects. Let's hear what made her interest herself in developing practice as well as research in this field. Hi, Graça.
Hi. Hi, Lucas.
It's good to have you with us. Can you tell us a bit more about the research that you've been involved in with CIPEM?
Yeah, this was back in 2007. I made the first contact with the person in Portugal in charge of what was to become the Sistema Portugal. But at that time they were starting with Gulbenkian and with one neighborhood in Lisbon. One person that was working in a neighborhood, in a poor neighborhood from Lisbon, and I know him well, so I went to Lisbon to interview him and to tell him we are interested in this program that you are just starting, and I want to be involved, and my research center wants to be involved, so we want to see how it develops. And I told him from the beginning that would be an independent research, so we were not being involved in evaluating what they were going to do, because we wanted to be independent from that. We wanted to make our own design of the research and study how this orchestra took place and how the nucleus were found and so. And we knew that this was Sistema inspired, strongly Sistema inspired, but nevertheless it was Portuguese style. So they didn't, from the beginning, they did not copy. No, they didn't do a sort of copy-paste from the Venezuelan Sistema of youth orchestras, but they worked according to the Portuguese, conditions and situations in the schools. And anyway, they began with Venezuelan teachers, people that were in our orchestras, in the Gulbenkian Orchestra, in the Casa de Música Orchestra, so people that were from the Venezuelan Sistema that came from there, were living in Portugal, and so he took hold of these people to be the teachers, the initiators of what they called Orquestra Geração. Our research, we went to the nucleus and had several. Our research was a qualitative research, had an initial part of mapping the nucleus where they have started. It had this initial part, and then afterwards after we had a map of what was going on in the different nucleus, in the different schools, all was based in the schools, we started our own research about what was going on. And so we observed many classes, we observed concerts, we observed how they taught the different instruments, and also we interviewed teachers and many, many children. We interviewed 63 children and young people, not only children, up to 16 years old, because in Portugal this program is school-based but finishes when they finish the 9th grade. So it doesn't go into the last years of secondary school. And so we interviewed all these young people through a method that I think you know about, because I told about it in Helsinki, which is a devised method by a French sociologist called sociological portraits. So we did 63 sociological portraits of those young people, and this was published then in a Portuguese book and translated into English, which is, available online.
Yes.
And so this was a multi-faced research, because we looked at many sides of this research, of this program.
How was the connection with the practitioners, with the musicians developing this program? How could you
access?
Yes, no, not access, but with the findings of the research. How did you communicate? How could you communicate them, and how was their reaction? What was their reaction?
Well, the reaction was multi-faced, because some of the things they thought were, praiseful, was something positive to what was happening, and indeed this had many interesting aspects. But on the other side, we also showed some negative sides of
critical
critical about this dichotomy between social inclusion and musical excellence, because they were saying all the time this is music inclusion, but on the other side they were pushing that they work, that they show progress, that they so that they could build the big orchestra. From all the nucleus, from the small orchestras, they wanted to have the big one, which is very good. Right now, it's a very good orchestra.
And Graça, so you've been following the last years what the international meetings that we've organized, and even the seminar for researchers, and that you accompanied. What has that meant for you as a researcher? To have you been able to connect with more people than those you knew before, and internationally?
Oh, yes. Well, I think it was wonderful for me to join SIMM and to be able to be at SIMM symposiums and in SIMM seminars. At least the first one, I was part of it, because I had the feeling how this is a sort of a main theme today, so everywhere, and also with the whole refugees movement.
There's a lot of practice of social music projects.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people involved.
But when you started, you say that you started already in 2007 with your research in Portugal.
Well, we started officially a bit later, but we interviewed we followed the first steps from the Geração, which was built in 2007. Yes. But officially, we got we had a funding for the whole project. It was a 3 years project, and the funding began at the end of 2013 and went until the end of 2017.
If you think of the future of research in this field, what do you think is really, where are the needs, the most important needs, according to you?
Well, I think that the most important thing is that you are able to identify the critical issues when you start a research in this area, which is different according to the countries. It's very different, or according if you are doing that in special poor neighborhoods or difficult neighborhoods, or if you are doing it in prison, or if you are doing it with refugees. It takes many faces. And what I think is that critical thinking that wasn't absolutely present in the first studies that I knew of, and in the first conferences where I was about where these things were discussed, from that very low level of critical thinking, I think we are now at a completely different stage. That people do know that there are critical issues about this belief that music for itself has the power to transform people, to transform life.
Not only for scholars, but also for musicians, practitioners, no?
Absolutely, yeah, indeed.
There's more and more interest from musicians who are practitioners in this field to be involved in research or to follow research closely.
Yeah, and also to be able to understand what is at stake when they go into such a setting, and they do work with these populations, and that they are aware of the difficulties on the one side, but on the other side that they are aware that they are not, they are not magicians. They are coming there and they are going to work with these people and maybe bring about some change in their way of looking into music and making music and being involved in making music. And being aware of how far this is important as an action, as an intervention, but how far this stops in the moment people withdraw from the research, because it stops. And in only in few situations you can see that this has made some change in the life of the person. Usually you cannot follow up. Usually you have very great difficulties to follow up what is going on. That is what I am right now trying to follow up a number of young people that were in the Orquestra Geração, the Portuguese Sistema, and that withdraw, are not there anymore. And so I am going to follow up on these young people that we interviewed back in 2014 and see what are they doing now, what was this experience, and what do they think that it was important or significant in their lives. So, because you have to follow up.
To come to a better understanding, but difficult to measure impact, yes? That's what you mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very, very difficult to measure impact. You can, in those interviews, you hear how these young people say that's good, but then what? So what? When I finish my 9th grade, I have to think where I'm going to find work, because I have to help my family, with money coming, have some more, bringing some income in. And so very few had the opportunity to go on studying and go on, with a music-centered life.
You mentioned this uncritical and maybe sometimes salvatory language that we hear about music doing all kinds of incredible things and saving souls, in all kinds of situations. You've been confronted with this yourself also. We do believe, otherwise we wouldn't do the research, that research in this field on the role that music can play in social work makes sense, that it can help get to a better understanding. What do you have to say about this?
I say yes. I believe too that this is a very strong line of intervention that we have with music. I believe really that we should go on doing work in bringing music as much as possible in many places, but I also think that what is important is not to have those sort of orchestras or like the Sistema, where mainly you have those kids that come from those neighborhoods. Well, the good thing would be to make interventions with mixed populations, because the important thing is that everybody has access, and not only that they have access to a high quality, if possible, music experience, but that this high quality music experience is socially divided with many other kinds and types of kids and young people and adults. It must not be an orchestra of the refugees and another of the children from the neighborhood, so and so from Lisbon, and another. Well, the good thing is that you can have people from various social backgrounds making music together. We experience, for instance, in the Portuguese Sistema, that because of the financial burden that it signified for the people that were running the orchestra, because they had subventions from the Minister of Education, they had money from Gulbenkian and from other institutions, but it was not enough to open the applications for the orchestra for everybody. So in the schools they would open and make a sort of, have a sort of a picture of each child. They had how do you say that? You have a record of each child. And so you could only accept children from a particular social background. And there were many more. I remember, for instance, in Sintra, which is in the neighborhood from Lisbon, kind of rich neighborhood. It's very, very popular because it has very ancient houses and castles and so on. And many people, rich people, live there. And they had kids that wanted to be in the orchestra, but they couldn't because they had the proper social background. Their social background was not appropriate, And this is something which is, from my point of view, and also from the point of view of our research team, it's a pity. Because we want to mix the children. We don't want to make ghetto orchestras. Yeah. Not rich youngsters and then the others, And this is a problem when you work in those neighborhoods in Colombia and in many, for instance, the very interesting work of Joff, his last work. It shows also this. You go into sort of ghettos to work with the children, making music with those children. And mostly they don't mix then with the other part of the population. That's not good both sides. It's not good for the kids that don't have the possibility to be in interaction with other social backgrounds, and it's not good for the rich kids that think that the world where they live in is the world, as if nothing more existed,
Let's see what an outreach music program can be about in a place such as the Gaza Strip in Palestine. I spoke about it with Khamis Abu Shaban, bass guitarist from Gaza, member of Watar Band, and also administrator of the Edward Said Music Conservatory of Gaza. Hello, Khamis.
Hello, Lucas.
Even though you yourself are not involved as a teacher in the outreach program of the music school, of the Gaza Music School, the Edward Said Conservatory, you're administrator, but you're a musician yourself, and you see your friends musicians at work, and so that's why I wanted to interview you about this specific program where the teachers from the music school go outside of the music school, find kids and adolescents, maybe adults, I don't know, out there in the Gaza Strip, and who are not making music, are not used to make music, and to work with them, introduce them to music, and even certain people who have talent, they can possibly get a scholarship to come to the music school afterwards. And So it's bringing music to people who are not like in the music school there to master music as such, but introducing them to music. So what do you think that musicians doing this need to have as talents and capacities?
We know as a fact that there are many talents which are we can say buried. We don't see them, but we know they are there. So we have to go to certain areas which are musically poor. We have to go find those talents. That's the idea behind the existence of an outreach program. Because people will not be dealing with music for many reasons. Maybe due to social reasons. Their families, they don't like music. Maybe they do not know the feeling of music. Maybe they do not know the effect of music. So when they get introduced to music, here's when you start with one family. Each kid or even an adult is a family, because he will spread the word. He will if he likes music, if he wants to learn more about music, he will be able to explain it to his environment. So that's maybe the best of having an outreach program. We can reach those talents, and maybe someday maybe we can find talents that are not an ordinary talent. So we can have those talents maybe study in the conservatory, get an academic program. Mm-hmm. So they can be more improved. Maybe they can express themselves more.
Yes, I was lucky to already assist to 2 concerts of this program involving lots of kids from the UNRWA, the UN schools, and with whom your music school is collaborating. And they were especially singing. So it's especially about having people sing, or is it also introducing them to master certain instruments, or?
Well, in this particular program, we had those concerts. The second one was 460 students.
Yes.
Of UNRWA schools. It's mainly about singing, mainly about choir, but the outreach program is divided into more than one segment. Uh-huh. One segment is that you have the Gaza Sings program, which have ended the beginning of last year, mm-hmm. Which we used to work with UNRWA schools on those 460 students. And then on the other hand, you have teachers from the music school going to other associations, for example Qattan, for example Nawa, in Gaza area, and in Deir al-Balah area, the middle of Gaza Strip. And here we teach instruments. We teach oud, we teach violin. So and also in the program with the UNRWA schools, we had 10 or 11 scholarships for 11 students of UNRWA schools to study instruments here at the conservatory.
What do the musicians, the teachers, tell you about their experiences doing this work? Do they like it? Why do they like it? What do they tell you about this work? Because it's very different from teaching kids and adolescents who come to the music school.
Yes, of course. It's always strange at the beginning, because you have to introduce, the kids from the scratch.
Yeah.
This is this is the funny part, you know. It always gets funny there, because you know, the kids, they feel strange. They are introduced to music in this particular way, and like when you have five or six kids, this is the first time they get together with a music teacher who is an academic teacher, not a friend of their neighborhood. No, he's an academic. He has an instrument with him, and he has a number of instruments for them to hold in their hands to try. And he plays for them. They hear the music for the first time so closely. So now you know who's more interested and what are the reactions of those students. Normally, you get very good results out of this.
But if it's the oud teacher, then kids will know oud, no? Because there's always someone in the family who plays oud, no? Or you hear oud on the radio, and so it's not entirely unknown then to them.
Yes. For example, oud and violin, it's a well-known instrument, because if they don't have someone in their family or neighborhood, they know it from the TV, from the internet, and so on.
Yes.
But they don't know instruments like trumpet, like you know, qanun.
No.
Some of them they know it, some they don't. So sometimes they are familiar with this instrument.
And so your friends, musicians, teaching these sessions. They're uncomfortable in the beginning, but appreciating it after some sessions, or
not uncomfortable, but they do have great experience in teaching students. So they have. Their role is, you know, to break the ice. They know how to break the ice with the students.
Yes. And of course, you don't teach piano because you can't move pianos around the Gaza Strip. Well, you have a beautiful piano at the music school now. But,
we do.
Yeah.
We do. We have the grand one.
Yeah, the grand piano. Kathy Milliken is an Australian musician and composer. She's since many years very involved in social and community outreach programs in very different contexts, in Japan, Germany, Austria, Turkey, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Serbia and Romania.
Yes, it's wonderful. I mean, as musicians anyway, we're communicators, and we know various situations in a normal classical field, which is, you know, that we're rehearsing with one another, and we're actually, you know, collaborating to interpret a piece. But the situation of collaborating to make a piece is something quite different. In other fields or other disciplines of art making, or even in the sciences, you know, collaboration is a very usual thing that people do. And even there are often processes of mediation or thoughts about how do we want to do this, how do we want to go about it, how do we want to actually bring together and bundle together all of the ideas that are sort of rushing around in the room. So you're quite right. The collaborations that I do are often taking places in completely different contexts. The given is, or the one thing that stays the same is, I am me, and I am a musician who's vastly interested in these processes, as well as through the lens of a composer. So some of the situations that I am in would be with either ranging from complete non-musicians who've never had any musical training whatsoever, but, you know, really interested to actually make something together, through to people with some knowledge, or maybe a mixture of knowledge and non-knowledge, through to also working in a sort of an improvisatory or compositional way with other musicians. But let's just look on the scale of people who are, you know, not making music every day, who are not professional. And the process is there, and the way we go about it, it's all sort of very interesting, really. No context is ever the same. I always try and know as much as I can about the people who are taking part and why they're taking part. So let's just take the example now of looking at working with people who have very little musical experience, some, but maybe not very much at all. And for me, it's really important to know the context in which I'm working with people. Why am I doing this project? Is it particularly a project that is looking at creating together, but from the point of view of, is there some sort of healing necessary within a particular community, or is it an educational thing where people are simply wanting to know more about music and this is a way in, or is it some sort of much more in a social context where one is trying to bring different groups of people within a city or a village together. So there are various reasons for doing this, and for me it's very important to know the context, to get to know who it is who's taking part and why. And then of course the processes of collaboration are simply very clear, I think, and that is, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a therapist, I'm a musician. So what I can bring to the table are my credits as far as a musician-composer go.
But in certain projects, do you collaborate with people who are social and community workers?
If I feel that I need another skill there in that particular project, if I'm working in prison, and I'm feeling that there's a need for the prison chaplain to be there, or if I'm working in a situation where I think a social worker is necessary, I would say, and also if I observe the process going. But I have not usually found that to be necessary, except when I was working in Japan after the tsunami, and it was much more about healing. I needed a very sensitive translator who was going to be actually someone who was very quick at ascertaining what the community needed, so that made me more effective in what I gave. So just to go back to the sense of being the musician, so what I bring to the table is that, and my skill also as a communicator. And then I think the most important thing is that I provide a structure for that particular collaboration, but really I take a lot of time to do that, because I think it's really important that I do my homework and bring something that is perhaps going to be viable for the group of people. But after that moment, I give the ball over to the people taking part, and I'm really careful to state, look, this is a place you can trust, this is a place where we are going to enjoy discussing, talking, because when you start discussing how a sound can be, what other sound could take part after that, why we're making this music, is there something that we want to say, do we want to develop some text, do we want to actually make this more song-based, or is it something which is actually rather more abstract? Are we going to involve the instruments that maybe a couple of people have brought? How are we going to bring them in what way are we going to make sound, what goes with what? It starts getting quite intricate after a few sessions with everybody, once we've sort of gotten to know each other, feeling the trust.
So it takes time also, no?
It does take time, and that is
what's the type of length of such projects that you think is not ideal, but that you if it's too short, you can't come to this kind of contact and understanding together with
That's right.
with people you don't know in advance.
There are simply key things that you're needing. You're needing respect, mutuality, space for people to say what they think, trust, but also time. So that's an essential element. And it also depends on where we want to go with the project. If it's a project where there is going to be some sort of performance afterwards, then there is going to be some sort of compromise on the time that you've got, which will be, okay, now we have to stop making, now we're going to rehearse. There will be some sort of negotiation with everybody on that level. But if it's a little bit more relaxed, and if we're, just seeing where we're going, then I think, the time of sort of having 2 or 3 making sessions, just to bandy around ideas of 2.5, 3 hours each, and then another couple of such sessions to find a form, to find out what people do, to actually, for me to make suggestions, get their feedback, start writing things down, start a process of recording so that we know where we're going. That's if we're trying to fix a piece. And either we've said, look, that was fun, shake hands, what did we get out of this? Do you want to keep going? Or, things like that. Is there some sort of sustainability to the project? Or we say, wow, thank heavens we've got a performance, we'll have 2 more rehearsals, and then it's, onto the stage.
How do you allow for their music to come into the picture? I mean, even if they're not musicians, if you're not working with musicians, they will have their music and the music that they love and they care for. And how
I think that's pretty much of an obvious thing. People bring everything with them. They bring their personality. They bring their pet loves of music. They bring their themes. They bring the things that they want to discuss. They bring their hearts and what's on their mind. So it's up to me to find out how to incorporate everyone's desire to make their type of music. And if it goes more into a sort of popular idiom and everyone agrees, yes, that's what we want, because there's also a bit of, there's some sort of democratic process where there will be voting on things, or, look, there's this or this option, which way do we want to go? So, that's why I don't know how a project will turn out in the beginning, but I just go with the flow and what people bring with them. On the other hand, I do have musical skills, so if I think, hey guys, that was a great offer, but do you realize it could just simply go to a bit of an any which way, so I will occasionally put in suggestions, but rarely. I don't need to. Everyone, it's amazing the breadth of ideas that people bring with them. People who had no training in music. I mean, it's exciting, specifically if there's a theme too that everyone's wanting to address.
More and more musicians are really interested in being involved in this kind of social and community work. You learned it on the job over many years, and do you think it's also possible to prepare musicians for this in the form of a training program, or what are your ideas about this?
Yes, it's interesting that you say that. I'm finding, as you say, that young musicians are really fearless about this type of work and totally interested. And I think it's also because the profession of being a musician has been opening up. And I think the young musicians see that, and they see other possibilities for themselves than we perhaps, we only had to perform or teach. So, and I think this is fascinating.
And only
I think young people
teach
are really...
for people who wanted to become musicians themselves, or yes. Wanted to master an instrument, or
I think the best way of teaching young musicians is to actually do projects with them and to actually have them take part as a participant, as they would then be afterwards leading. So I think that the very best way of teaching students to do this work is actually not teaching them, but doing it with them, and then lots of discussion afterwards, reflection, to have each of them take turns at leading, because this sort of leading by not leading is very much an art. And musicians who have not reflected on this process, you'll often see them standing in front of their participants talking, and the participants are not playing, no one's playing, and that musician is, talking about their worldview of music, which is
Have you been involved
lovely,
in doing this, accompanying musicians in this way?
Yes, I have. Well, the IEMA of the Ensemble Modern has a wonderful teaching section for their academy students. I've been to the university in Bern teaching there. I've been, doing lots of projects with at the Cologne University in this sense, and there was one other thing I was going to mention. Well, of course, training orchestral musicians, and that's a special thing for itself. I think the younger orchestral musicians don't have such a problem with this, but for older orchestral musicians, one has to be really respectful that they have their there standing their position in the orchestra, and then to suddenly, be standing in a completely democratic circle with school kids and then have to sing a melody in front of their colleagues as well as the kids, that's really a huge step. So, I think that there's a lot to be said for devising and using a sort of model of working together where it doesn't matter who you're working with, but specifically, if you are wanting to work in people who've got, rather a little bit of nervousness about this type of work, it's really good to do breaking the ice where you're doing games. So games and musical games play a large part of my work at the beginning to actually get people to enjoy one another's company, to get to know them in a non-verbal type of language, and then to start having discussion rounds and all that sort of thing. So it's not a difficult thing to do, but there are some aspects of it that are just incredibly important, which I've just spoken about.
I do not know any other musician who is more experienced and engaged in social and community music projects than Bart Maris. Hearing him talk about music making makes me think of the writings of Christopher Small on musicking. Hello, Bart.
Hello, Lucas.
You're a musician, you're a jazz musician playing trumpet, and I know you as a musician, but you're also very active in social and community projects. Why are you so keen to work in these social community projects? What is there in for you? What you're doing it since many years, and I know you care very much for this work, and the question is why?
I think to preserve the place for music it deserves in a society. And this is something I see, and then I'm talking really for the Western society, is that there's a big paradigm with music. It's like we made music a job. If you look to Western perception of music, like if somebody learns music, if somebody goes to this conservatorium, this higher institute of learning music, it has an economical goal. It becomes a job, and a job always has this implication like you will be able to make a living. And when you say economical, it means like I produce and people will pay to receive. And I have to say, like, this is not the place music had for a really long time. And now in really the last years, and especially with this digital platform happening, music has become a tool. It has become a goal to make money. And music is a tool to do that, but it cannot also be the tool to do many other things. And these let's say these functions of music are disappearing very quickly in our society. And I think that music will become incomplete without these aspects, and it will, not vanish. Music will never vanish, but I mean like some elements of it will vanish. And I saw this, I played for years with a group called Think of One, which was a world music group. And as so, we did collaborations in Morocco first, and then also in South America, in northern Brazil, in Recife. And also then with my brother, with another band, we went to Benin in Africa. I did a project with a Holland-Dutch theater company in Kinshasa. That's where I met you on the airport some years ago.
Yes.
But what I see there is that the music has a commercial aspect. Musicians play at a high level to make money, but they know that they will only be present in a society when music has an active role and people are interested to see it. And this interest cannot only be passively triggered as we do it in the West. Like you listen to tunes, you make lists on I don't know what sites, and you listen to it over and over and you like it. No, if you participate in it actively, you will you will become, you will become part of it. And this is what I saw a lot happening in Africa and South America and even in America. And in Europe, yes, we have this, in Belgium has this splendid system of, amateur music performance in music schools. But this is where the whole thing is split up in different subjects. You learn some theory, then it's like doing an exam to drive a car. And I don't think that's a good approach toward the music.
So you're saying that when people study music, they're taught to prepare themselves to do a job, to make
this
music.
Is how Europe sees it a lot, yes. Yeah.
To make money, to make a living, yes?
Yes, everything has become a profession. Everything you do, it has to have an economical reason. And this makes this kind of approach toward making music, where the individual priority is really exponentially put forward. That's why also in Europe you have this education system where they will always isolate the individual person. And then they train him before he can play together. And I think, and then I come back to where I really like to work with non-musicians, whatever their background, in a musical context, because if you put them together, the people that can play the instrument, the people that can't play the instrument, the people that come out of a completely normal background, the people that are coming out of I don't know what situation, you create a common field. And yet, the progress of the group will indicate itself. And everybody will feel the difficulties that makes. And will have to make this social contribution to get to the result, the highest result possible. So it needs community. And this is so important. And I think the best groups I played in, and I'm talking professionally, are not the groups where I'm hired as a musician, but are the groups where I actively participated in too many rehearsals and too many discussions. Because that's where you get a common ground. And I think like music offers this unique thing that the moment you, as an individual person, without any knowledge, you step into this procedure, you forget about the past. You're starting a new timeline. So you get a zero reset. You restart. And when I start a new project with new people, it's zero. I start from zero. And yes, I have all these things I've done before, but the moment I start is zero, and I'm at the same level as the people sitting in front of me, where some are no musician at all. And this having this same feeling, like we're together, we're in this together. I can go as fast as you want to walk.
And that's possible with musicians and with non-musicians.
This is the way. This is the only way to work with combined groups of musicians and non-musicians. And what will happen then is that the musicians will very quickly take responsibility to help the weaker or non-musicians to understand how it works. And this is something I saw happening in Benin when I was working there. We were playing with a professional brass band, but they would rehearse on the street. And little kids would come and see and ask questions. And instead of saying like, no, don't bother us, we're very busy. No. What would happen is like they would show to these kids, look, that's what we do now. That's how we do it. And they would also participate in that and see like, okay, that's what they do. And this like passing on information in between the group without me being a kind of leader. This is very important. This is really important. Like they feel like I don't do this because Bart is asking me. I do it because I want to do it.
Yes, but then then to be able to master an instrument, you need to work on it for a certain time. It's technique.
Yes, of course, and this, but it's how to say, it's the order of things that is switched. So somebody joins in the group in Tozo. It happened as I'm a trumpet player. Some people showed up, never played an instrument, said, "Okay, I'm gonna play trumpet."
Yeah,
said, "That's cool."
Tozo is the Ostend Street Orchestra. Yes.
The Ostend Street Orchestra. Yes. This was a project we did for I think 3 years, 4 years, a kind of long period, and in a very regular, continuous way. We would meet a variated group, but with a lot of times the same people in it. And so what we do is like we motivate them in the group. We make things so simple that they could be part of it, and trigger them to be motivated to work. Mm-hmm. And they had this motivation, and of course, like it's hard to, like, the week after, and they forgot the scores and the instrument, and always things go wrong. But you give them a new chance, and because they feel like, hey, if I'm getting better on this instrument, I become more part of this.
Yes.
And this trigger is so important, yeah. And this for me is also a thing, like when I work even with the amateur player, there's the skill of the playing, but then there's this idiomatic thing, like music can be so many things. Like with Ostend, with this Ostend project, we ended up having a very, very noisy, very rock setting. Uh-huh. And it started off with a completely different plan. Yeah, the people that really organized it, Klein Verhaal Oostende, they thought, like, let's make a street orchestra. Mm-hmm. And I told them, like, this is a nice plan, but I think you should see who's going to show up, what instrument they want to play, which instrument they are already playing, and then you see which group you have. If you start to define too many elements in advance, you make a kind of filter which is not the good filter for this kind of project. And so what happened is that people showed up and were, in the beginning, were a bit confused, because some people, you find the characters really coming very prominent. Some people want to take over from you. They really want to impose themselves. They want to make structures. Some people just want to make a big mess. We had some of them. Mm-hmm. You go like, what? But they do it. And I thought, like, you can. I'm not going to protest. I think your colleagues, other people in the project, will be much faster than me putting their finger on you like, hey, guy, don't do that. So what happens is, in fact, you create what I think. I create a new, from scratch, a new social environment where they can make their own rules. But the goal stays like, we will make music. But which rules are we going to apply for our music? And the biggest discussions we had was like, we need melody, how are we going to do it? We want to sing, and so people take up roles. Like there was one guy, John, he didn't want to sing, he didn't want to play music. He was sitting at the table, and we asked him, like, John, maybe you can write us text. And he started to write text, but like on an afternoon, he would write like 4, 5, 6 pages of text, and we could just grab words from his text and work with that. And so everybody gets a kind of role in that. Yeah. And you feel like that slowly this group was settling as a group, like where like John is making text, Eduardo's playing drums, Richie is playing trumpet.
No fixed positions.
Well, we didn't fix the position. They would do it. Mm-hmm. Because they want to have a role, and they don't want to be in this insecurity. Like there was one guy, it's not music at all, and what's his name? Oh, damn. And Didier. And DJ would pick up, in the beginning I thought like, would pick up a shaker and all afternoon he would ching, ching, ching. He played a shaker. Mm-hmm. And he would ask me like, is that okay, Bart? I said, well, DJ, if you feel okay with that, that's fine. Huh? And he would find out like, okay, I can play this thing in the rhythm, out the rhythm. I can stop, I can start. And for him, just the element of having control of that, being part of this group, was a big thing for him. And this is for me the most important.
During this podcast episode, you heard extracts from interviews with Graça Mota from Portugal, Khamis Abu Shaban from Gaza, Kathy Milliken from Australia, and Bart Maris from Belgium. SIMM is the initiative of scholars and practitioners from 7 different countries and 4 different continents who felt the growing need to find ways to bring together people interested in developing research on the possible role music can play in social and community music programs. Sound engineer and co-editor of this episode of the SIMM podcast is musician Mariusz Radwanski. Please visit our website at simm-platform.eu.